7 tips to help you become a god IGL. Okay, so the first tip I'm going to talk about is that as the IGL, you must every single time have the final say, no matter what it is. Now, don't get this mixed up, because you should definitely acknowledge things and ideas that your other teammates give you. But what you need to do is take that information in and then find out which is the best path or play to make, and then using that information, you then get the final say on the last play to do. Because it is 10 times better to maybe make the play that isn't as good as another idea that another teammate gave, instead of kind of frantically going in between ideas and being undecisive about an idea and then maybe doing an idea and your teammate doesn't really know what they're doing. It's just so much better to have one person saying one thing, because then you're all confident to do that one thing and do it quickly and accurately, because you do not want your team hesitating to do any play, because that's just going to be bad, obviously. Number 2, it kind of runs on from the previous tip, but you really need to be as decisive as possible as the IGL of your team. You need to make your calls almost like instantly, and then after that you like don't backtrack on your ideas as much as possible, because you need your team to like trust in your ideas fully, so they know once you say something that they have to do it, and they just instinctively like doing it instantly without any hesitation that you're going to backtrack on your idea. The more you do this, like be really decisive and make an idea, then don't backtrack on it and an idea be good, the more your teammates are going to trust you and fully carry out your like plans instantly without any hesitation, which is what you want. Like for example, in an in-game, you should just be like, okay, we're going right, follow me, and that's it. And then your teammate just knows exactly what to do, and you don't backtrack on your idea like, okay, let's go right, actually maybe we should go middle, like that's terrible, because your teammate's going to hesitate, you don't know what to do. You need to make one decision and go, and then your teammate will build up the trust. And number 3, when you start playing with a new team, you need to set your expectations to them of what you're going to do in the team from the very start. And by this, what I mean is, what you need to do is like play really seriously, right? And you need to call them out on all their mistakes. You know, go on the VODs at the end of your games, etc. Like call everything out and set some really good expectations. Because what's going to happen is, if you don't do that and you just from the start you just play and kind of troll, then once you want to start getting serious and call them out on mistakes, etc., then they're going to get emotional about it and not have a good reaction, etc. Like I remember playing with people and I wouldn't really take it seriously at the start, and then later on I wanted to start taking it seriously and started trying to call them out on things, but then they reacted in an emotional way because I hadn't set those expectations. And number 4, you need to be responsible for you and your teammates' mentality. What you need to do with this is, as the IGL, you need to be really calm and unemotional with things. So first of all, your communications, your comms, should be really like monotone and calm most of the time. Because when you're calm and stuff, it influences your teammate to be calm and stuff, which is obviously very helpful when you're in a stressful environment, so you can make decisions easier if you're calm. And if you're always screaming and being really loud and emotional, then it's going to trigger the emotions in your teammate, which is going to make them play worse. And another reason you want to do that with your comms is, if you're like pretty monotone and quiet most of the time, when you want to get a point across really like easily in a game, then since you haven't been like loud or anything, once you are loud for like one certain really important thing, then your teammates are gonna react really quickly and like be kind of shocked because they never hear you be that loud. So it's gonna have more an effect than it would have if you like were really loud a lot of the time. And also with this thing about you being responsible for your team's mentality, is in tournaments you really need to be like, it sounds cringe, but you almost need to like towel off your teammates kind of like when they get emotional and stuff. Like if you do bad in a game and they're like complaining about it, you need to tell them to just shut up. And also on top of that, you need to stay calm and stuff. And if you tell them to be quiet about complaining and you're also calm, that's like a massive influence on them to like keep their mental good. And if you just either ignore their mental, like them complaining and stuff, or you even support it, then it's just going to keep getting worse and worse. So as soon as they start complaining from the get-go, when you start playing with them, you need to call it out. Like I said before, you need to set the expectations of what your team's going to have. And number 5, it's kind of with a previous tip about being responsible for your team's like improvement, but with this you need to be responsible with doing like the things that are like kind of boring. For example, like VOD reviewing. Like every game you need to tell your teammate, okay, I'm going into VODs, I'm going to VOD review, I'm going to screen share, and we're going to go through and tell each other what we think we did wrong. And with the tip, you also need to really be focused about thinking about what your team is bad at. So if you're like, oh, we suck at fighting, and then you'd be like, okay, we're going to do 2v2s against good players and get better at fighting. Like, you need to be responsible for your team's improvement. Don't be like influenced by your teammates as an IGL. Like, if they're like, I don't really want to play 2v2s, let's just play scrims or just 1v1. And number 6, I think this is one of the most important things, is you really need to watch other pro IGLs. And when you do this, you need to watch how they play, obviously, and you also need to listen and watch how they like interact or treat their other teammates. I remember back in the day watching Creo in-game highlights, and that taught me heaps, mostly about the like tarping and layering and stuff, and I just watch it and I just like desperately find out like why they're doing what they're doing, etc. And I also learn how they commed and treated their teammates as well as the IGL. And number 7, you need, as an IGL, you need to be obsessed with like finding out how the game works, obviously, because as an IGL, the main importance of your role is to know the game, you know. So you need to be obsessed with finding out like what you did wrong and what you should have done, and watching pros and seeing what they do and why they do. Like, you need to be obsessed with that. I recommend just going into VODs of pros, mostly in like really stacked lobbies, like in Elite Cup finals, etc., and you just watch them, and then you just try dissect like each play they make, like mid-game, in-game, early game, all that. And then with each play, once you recognize what they did, then you need to try understand why they did what they did. And then with this information, when you watch your games over, then you can know what you're doing wrong or what you should have done, because you watched a pro do what they do, basically. To be a great IGL, you really need to have a lot of experience, of years of like being in really stacked lobbies and just playing for ages, because that's all the IGL is really, as someone that has like heaps of experience. That's why like a lot of up and coming players are usually like fraggers, because a fragger, you can kind of get pretty good in like a year or 2 as a fragger, and you don't really need to like know and have heaps of experience in the game. But you can still become a good IGL if you just start implementing these tips right now. But what I think is really valuable about being an IGL compared to just a fragger is, as an IGL, you get to be way more responsible for your team's success. Like, I find if you're a really good IGL, almost no matter who you play with, you're gonna do as good as you are. And also on top of that, it's way easier to find teammates if you're an IGL. Alright, thanks for watching, see ya.